you do what you can and whatever connection is best and light and all that. And if it needs to be in a closet, so be it.
That's right. Hello, Dexter. I just promoted you to a panelist, so I hope that worked okay.
That works okay. We are waiting for a couple other people to sign in. I knew I had a little bit of a problem getting in.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but it's working out.
Okay. What kind of issue was it?
Well, I think it was just sort of understanding where the links were located in the email.
Got it.
And then the pass, for some reason, trying to bring it in without the passcode, but I think it's working out, and I'm talking someone else through it right now.
Okay, I will not distract you. I see Dr. Warner, and I will promote her to a panelist.
Hi, Dexter. Good to see you.
Hey, Kara. Well, you can't see me, but I can see you. Good to see you. We'll adjust that in a second.
Hello,
Brian,
folks.
we're all good on my end as far as YouTube and whatnot. So as soon as we hear from eScribe, we should be good to go.
Okay, yeah, I'm just taking the opportunity to promote some of the folks to panelists. I think we successfully got in Dr. Warner and Spider, and we were talking with Dexter.
Hey,
And
Brian,
Hi.
I don't think I need to be a panelist. I can just watch. So
Okay.
Thanks.
Got it. And Aaron, are you gonna kick off or?
Yeah, I have a short presentation and then we'll shift to the panelists for questions.
Great. I see Dr. Hall. I'm going to promote Dr. Hall to a panelist. And Melina, old person. Okay, and Kara, did you say we were ready to go on eScribe, or do we need to wait?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, hi Megan. Well, why don't we go ahead then, and I'll keep my eyes open if there are any other folks that we need to promote to panelists, but I want to say good afternoon and call Committee of the Whole to order for today, Wednesday, November 18th. We continue to meet virtually, and I think maybe if it's Megan or Kara, if you could put up some of the information about our virtual meetings. Thank you. So this is our link, as is consistent with all our other council meetings, where folks can find agendas and related documents. Then I think we have some instructions for folks to participate and provide public comment. We're continuing to use Zoom webinars. Folks can raise and lower their hand as participants in that. There's an opportunity on iPhones and Androids to raise and lower hands, and dial-in participants can use *9 to both raise and lower your hand. We have a few different mechanisms for public comment. We have a voicemail that goes to all council members at 406-552-6012. And then for a long time, we've had this council@ci.missoula.mt.us email, and any emails to that go to all council members as well. Thanks. We can take those down. At this point, pardon me one sec, I see Mr. Galbraith, and I'll promote him to panelist. So I will do, actually, I'd like, would it be okay, Megan, to call roll, or Kara? I forget which one of you.
I can do it. This is Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Anderson,
Present.
Becerra,
Present.
Contos,
Here.
Arp,
Present.
Hess,
Present.
Jones,
Present.
Merritt,
Present.
Ramos,
He'll be absent today.
thank you, Cheryl,
Present.
Basika,
Present.
Von Lossberg,
I'm here.
West.
Present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. This is an opportunity for folks to provide public comment on any non-agenda items. We have one agenda item today, which is the Learn contract. And we'll be getting a presentation and opportunity for questions on that. But if there's anyone in attendance who would like to provide public comment on non-agenda items, this is that opportunity. Not seeing any, we'll go ahead and move into our one agenda item. And I believe Ms. Pan is going to kick that off.
All right. Erin Pahan with the Department of Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. Thanks for having me today. We're also joined by many members of Learn Missoula who will be able to answer questions of council members after I just present a brief bit of information to you all. So I am excited to be here today to present on our collaboration with Learn Missoula, and to talk about how this work will act as a foundational step in the City of Missoula's larger goals around equity, and also to request the approval of a contract to support these efforts. So what is Learn Missoula? Learn Missoula is a research project team that is BIPOC led and directed. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Each member brings unique knowledge, skills, and a professional value base to this project and this work. They also have a history of engaging in equity and diversity work. As a collective, they're committed to centering local BIPOC voices, experiences, and knowledge in the process of transforming community structures, municipal systems, which we're particularly interested in, and business institutions in Missoula. Learn Missoula emerged as a result of concerns expressed by the Missoula City Council about how to best address structural racism within city government. They have submitted a proposal for partial funding from the city, but are also actively seeking other funding sources in the community to continue the work. The contract before you today is a request for foundational funding in the amount of $75,000 out of a total budget of $387,000. Many of the team members listed here are on the call today and will be available to answer questions. Learn Missoula's vision is to use BIPOC generated knowledge to envision and design solutions that are place-based and action-oriented to transform Missoula into a place and a space of equality, equity, and inclusion, where whiteness is decentered at a structural level, particularly in local government. While I'll allow the team to speak directly to their research methodology, I do want to highlight the project's goals and outcomes and talk about how these align with the City of Missoula's larger goals as stated in our strategic plan. There are 4 goals associated with Learn Missoula's research in their proposal. The first goal is to actively engage BIPOC members who historically have been forced to the margins of research process by using what the team describes as a transformative paradigm that embodies a human rights, social justice, and critical approach to research. The second goal is to cultivate research partnerships with BIPOC community-based organizations, groups, and residents. In forming those partnerships, for whom the research matters on a practical level, the research becomes participatory and action-oriented. Third, to center BIPOC voices on issues of structural inequality, marginalization, and systemic oppression by bringing their lived experiences to the forefront through an ethically well-designed research process that will inform transformative social action strategies. And lastly, to scrutinize the nature of municipal departments' existing and archival data in order to gain a deeper understanding relating to the interactions the BIPOC community has with local government. This project is working towards 4 important outcomes. The first, the generation of practical and applied knowledge directly from BIPOC residents, collaborators, and stakeholders with whom Learn Missoula will engage in conversations. Secondly, the acquisition of BIPOC-centered solutions and strategic action steps that will inform the process of dismantling structural inequality and systemic oppression in private and public spaces. And again, being place-based is a very important aspect of that, solutions that will work for Missoula. The privileging of BIPOC-generated knowledge and strategies are the third outcome, so that they play an instrumental role in the process of bringing about that transformative change in municipal systems. And lastly, developing a deeper understanding of the nature of municipal departments' existing and archival data and the ways in which they collect, the ways in which we collect, analyze, and use that data for policy development. A critical outcome of the data scrutiny and evaluation is to make sure that we're obtaining objective and quantifiable information about the Missoula BIPOC residents' social reality in terms of how they interface with city and county systems on a day-to-day basis. The outcomes that are generated from this work will provide the city of Missoula the foundational information that we need that really is essential to us in terms of moving ahead in our equity work. As a reminder, the strategic plan outlines 5 specific goals around equity that we have planted our flag in terms of achieving in the next 5 years. These include designing and creating programs, facilities, and spaces across the community that promote equity, working with community partners like Learn Missoula to define disparities in our community and identify the most promising solutions towards advancing social, economic, and racial equity, creating a pro-equity policy agenda that will advance racial and social equity in the areas of economic development and health, the environment and the climate, housing, health and behavioral health, the justice system, and mobility. Creating an equity and social justice strategic plan that will serve as our blueprint moving ahead, mirroring those action-oriented, place-based strategies that Learn Missoula will provide. And lastly, engaging neighborhoods to identify and understand needs and to promote pro-equity policies and programs across the city. All of this work requires the generation of knowledge directly from the BIPOC community, BIPOC-centered solutions and action steps to provide us with a path ahead, and a deeper understanding of our data at the city of Missoula, what we collect, how we collect it, and perhaps just as importantly, what we don't collect today. We need this information to better understand the experiences of BIPOC's interaction with local government systems, services, and programs. This is the foundational work that we need to move ahead. However, we're not looking to this project as a standalone solution to further our equity work. There are many things that the city of Missoula can and should be doing right now alongside things that might fall outside of this work. For instance, addressing our goals around social equity. There will also be some areas that are identified through the Learn Missoula proposal that we want to take a deeper dive on and look at more thoroughly. So it's important that we recognize this is only one piece of the puzzle, but it is an essential piece of the puzzle. So next steps, the timeline for this work, should City Council approve this contract and we proceed, will be a 1-year recursive model. And the recursive model allows for the dissemination of information throughout, because the research will be building upon itself as they move through the process. In terms of reporting, Learn Missoula will be providing the Missoula City Council updates as we move through the process. They've also built a very robust website that they will be posting reports on, so the entire community can continue to track the project as it moves along. Those findings will be disseminated through several additional avenues, including written reports, formal and informal presentations to the City Council and other stakeholders, video or digital formats, and interviews. And with that, I can answer any questions that Council may have, or we can turn it over to the Learn Missoula members who have joined us today to answer more in-depth questions about the proposal. And to remind the general public, the proposal is attached to the referral and can be accessed through the city website, in addition to these slides and the referral for this today.
I have to remind myself I'm out of practice unmuting. Thanks, Aaron, very much. And I know some people are queuing up. I wanted to explicitly welcome all the members of the project team here today. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for all the work that you've done on this. And before we get to questions, I just wanted to provide an opportunity to anyone on the team if there was anything that they wanted to say or add or supplement to Erin's introduction and her presentation. And if so, just go ahead and raise your hand. And if not, we can just jump in with questions.
Ryan, I think I saw Dr. Werner.
Oh, hi, Dr. Werner. I'm bad at looking at hands and then at the images. So nice to see you again. Thanks.
Sorry, I used my real hand, not my virtual hand. I just wanted to add, first of all, I want to say thank you, Erin. You summarized that really well. You captured the essence of our work. There's just a couple of other areas I really want to reinforce. Number one is the fact that as a project team, we recognize that we are not the experts. And so part of what we are committed to doing is absolutely engaging with other BIPOC community-based organizations, other BIPOC activist groups and associations to work with them to listen to their own understanding of what are some of the historical as well as current issues, and ask them to envision what they feel would be a just and equitable Missoula. So that's one piece. The second piece that I want to reinforce is that our focus is on gaining data-informed, BIPOC-generated knowledge. It's very important to us that anything that we present is data-driven, and that it is driven data directly from the viewpoints and voices from the BIPOC community. Erin indicated that often BIPOC voices are marginalized in areas that matters most to themselves. And so we are using a very specific strategy to have them be centered in this process. Second to the last that I want to reinforce is that we are coming from a couple of basic premise. Number one, we are coming from the premise that there is indeed structural inequality. We are coming from the premise that we live in a society where whiteness is centered, and it's nothing about whether or not people are bad. It isn't, it's a systemic issue. So we're coming at that. So our research isn't intended to prove that exists. Our research is focused on Now that we know this exists, what is it that BIPOC are experiencing, taking that anecdotal information and codifying it in a very rigorous way, and finally asking for how to go about creating solutions so that we can all live in a place where there is equity and justice. Those are just the areas I definitely wanted to just reinforce.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Warner. I've got a queue of folks here on council, so I'm going to run into those. Heather.
Thanks, and greetings to all of you from the Learn Project. I think we're all excited to have you here today. One of the question I have for you focuses on an area that is of great concern to me, and that's housing in particular. And I'm wondering if the work that you're going to be doing is going to kind of dig deep in terms of racist restrictive housing covenants that may still be on our books. I asked that question because one of my staff members brought it to my attention. And I truthfully was just very much appalled to see that in writing. Granted, it was 1929, but nevertheless, I don't know if those types of covenants are still on the books. And if so, what are we going to be able to do to eliminate those?
Yes, part of our looking at the departments within the city is to look at all the data, and the data does include policies as well as covenants, and looking at them through the critical lens of racial equity and inclusion. And so if that does exist, part of what we will do is we will be raising that and say, hey, are you aware that this exists? And asking the Department of Housing to begin to look at how they can create internal practices that would eliminate those kinds of barriers. So that, yes, indeed, that will be part of our process. We are absolutely doing a deep dive in whatever city department will allow us to come in, and we are going to be scrutinizing and interrogating all of the data that they will allow us to look at, which include policies, covenants, procedures, practices, actual data sets, to look to see the degree to which there may be implicit and explicit biases, institutionalized racism, institutionalized inequity, and sitting with those departments, doing an actual interview with departmental representatives and coming up with very specific transformative recommendations about how to move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Warner. Brian, may I have a follow-up?
Sure.
You said something that just, I don't know if I heard it quite correctly or not, but are you going to be able to have the ability to enter any department and be able to do some investigation, or is this only on a welcome basis?
Well, we are hoping that within the structure of the city that there will be a, how do I say this? A gentle nudge to say, we really want you to open your doors. So that's what we are hoping for. We are just looking for those who will welcome us openly. We are going to show up with all departments, and we will use our personal charm and who we are, and even those that are resistant will just come to our side because we're just glorious. Like Dale wants to say something.
Yeah, that was well said, Dr. Warner. And Dale turned on his video, and I'm guessing he might want to speak to this. I certainly expect we will hear that there will be great participation.
Certainly, I did exactly want to say that. This is a priority of the mayor's office, and we are expecting full participation from all our departments. I think, one of our constraints will be the lack of data, but the ability to start collecting data in the proper way and to be able to use it is going to be important. I do want to stress one thing to make clear that, we are really focusing this Learn effort on city operations, laws, ordinances, policies, procedures, and Missoula County as well. So some of the covenants that Heather may have mentioned, those might be in private homeowners association, but what we are hoping that as the city looks at these changes and embraces them, we're going to be a model for all organizations, businesses, and the entire community moving forward.
Thanks, Dale.
I just wanted to just follow up with the whole data piece. Yes, we are actually wanting to what I call interrogate the data because that becomes very important. And not only do we want to interrogate the data, we really want departments, and part of what we will be doing is helping them to set up this very natural feedback loop with their data. So data isn't intended to just be collected and then sit. Data is intended to then inform how do we then go about making changes. So one of the things that we will be working with the departments on is creating reflexive practices with their data. So allowing that data to inform, as the data come in, it needs to be analyzed, it needs to be scrutinized. And then the question is, now that we know this, how does this then inform what we need to do differently? And so that will be part of what we will be working with departments on to become data informed departments that love data and get excited about collecting valuable data, not just any kind of data, but valuable data that will then inform your departments and ultimately to implement some of the strategic plans that Erin identified.
Thanks. Sandra.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I have two questions. My first question is in August, Learn Missoula proposed a $100,000 study. Funding was then included in the city fiscal year 21 budget for that. In 2 months, the price tag has grown to $387,000. What has driven this almost 4 times growth?
I think I can speak to that, Sandra. In August during, or Councilwoman Vasaka, in August during the budget process, we requested $100,000 in funding to support this effort. I don't believe a budgetary amount was part of the initial scope that Learn Missoula had presented. I believe that was the sum that we as the city of Missoula presented as our support towards the effort. And so this budget of $387,000, this is the first time that we have seen a budget associated with the scope of work for Learn Missoula. The previous presentation was just regarding our request for support of that work.
Okay, that clears that up. And may I have my follow-up?
Yep.
I understand that the data will come out and then the reports will kind of build up upon themselves. But is there a plan of how many progress reports there will be within the year study? And also, is there an estimate of how many the number of the BIPOC research conversations that are necessary to fulfill the PSA?
No, at this point, we do not have a number. The method that we are using is recursive. And so as we move through that process, that will define how much we are presenting. It needs to be open-ended because part of the recursive methodology is what's called an emergent design. So everything emerges through the process. Our goal really is to really be intentional about presenting data as it emerges. That's for the qualitative piece. In terms of the quantitative piece, where we will be working with the departments, that data is going to be in real time. So there will not be any elapse of time between that. We come into a department, for example, if we come into the Department of Housing, once we have started that process, that data, our findings will be absolutely communicated ongoingly with the representatives that we are working. So that's real-time data. The qualitative data is very different. We do not have a numeric number in terms of how many BIPOCs we need to have research conversation with, because that is antecedent to the very emergent design that we are using. We will know when we've had enough when we reach what's called saturation, where the stories and the experiences are being repeated over and over again, and that there are no new insights, no new dimensions to what we are learning. Once that has happened, then we will know that we have ultimately reached our goal. Keep in mind that since one of an important outcome is having local BIPOC generated knowledge that's both practical and applicable, it is imperative that we keep talking with as much BIPOC residents, community-based organizations as we can to ensure fidelity, to ensure trustworthiness, to ensure validity, to ensure sustainability, and also to ensure sufficiency. So I know sometimes people want numbers up front, but the very process that we engage in does not lend itself to us saying to you, we are going to be doing X number of interviews, because that really diminishes the depth and the breadth of what we want to do.
Thank you.
Thanks. Amber.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to see this moving forward. And while I'm sure it would work, Dr. Warner, I'm glad to know that we don't have to rely on personal charm to get things done. So thank you for that, Dale. A couple of my questions have been answered. I was also excited to hear Dale say that this research will be shared beyond and maybe going to all organizations, not just the city government. Obviously, that's what we can control, where we're starting, but I'm glad to see that it will have broader reaching effects. I'm wondering two things. Aaron, maybe this one's for you. Will this be shared on the Engage Missoula site? We're really trying to move people toward that site, and I didn't see that on your list.
Yeah, I think this would be a good project to build more awareness on and engage. I think our goal would be to use that site as a public education opportunity, and then to direct folks to Learn Missoula, since this is it's a project that we're very invested in and that we're supporting, but not a project of the city of Missoula as well. And so we would reflect that collaboration.
Great. May I have one more question, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
And so for Dr. Warner, just thinking about the data collection and, I'm assuming we'll kind of have, as we look at some of these policies, whatever they might be, that we'll have kind of a starting point that we're looking at. And as we're collecting data, my goal in this, and I think everyone's goal in this, is to start to, move that needle in the right direction, whatever department we're talking about. And how will we kind of in the feedback loop kind of be ensuring that we're moving the needle in the right direction? I mean, I guess that's the end goal. Can you talk about like a starting point of data, and we're probably not going to really get to an end point of data, but just how that would work? That would help me to understand.
Let me make sure that I am understanding your question. Your question is relating to how we will scrutinize the data when we get into departments. Am I understanding it correctly?
Sorry, I'm not unmuting. No, I think that like, as we look at the data, I'm being a little confusing, I'm sorry, but as we're trying to move the needle on policies, and whether that be a housing policy, and seeing that what we're doing is working, we're going to have a data point that we start at. We're going to determine what the policy is that we need to change. How do we track how that policy change that we've done is doing, and if it is actually helping in the way that we're intending? It's a convoluted question. I understand. I'm trying. I want to move the needle, right? So I'm trying to figure out how we make sure and get feedback that we're doing that, and what we're trying is working.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable question. I think part of how we will know we are moving the needle, I think there are two ways that we will know it. Given the fact that we are using a mixed method where we are going to be actually engaging in conversations with BIPOC community as a whole, that part of what we will be doing is finding out from them what are their experiences. And we'll be talking with departments about what it is that they're doing, looking at their data. And we're going to be looking to see the degree to which there is correspondence or congruence between what the department is saying and what the BIPOC community residents are saying and what solutions they're recommended. So we'll take some of the solutions that they're recommending and bring it into the department. So that's one way I think we can have that idea of a congruence in terms of, okay, we are moving the needle in the right direction. We're moving in the needle in the right direction because it's informed by the voices of BIPOC and the experiences. A second way that we will know that we are moving the needle in the right direction as it relates to departments is that we will be offering some very specific recommendations around data. So for example, in a department, if there isn't data that's specifically gathered around, I don't know, let's just say BIPOC identity, we will talk with the departments about the value of integrating that. The other thing that we'll be doing is we'll also be looking at data, and sometimes people have data and they don't know that they have data. So we will be looking at the data and engaging in an analysis of what the data is saying and using that data as a point also to move that needle. I'm not sure if I'm responding specifically to what you're asking. Sometimes the process is so emergent that sometimes it's hard to pinpoint and say, we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z to move the needle in very specific ways. But that is our goal. Our goal, using your metaphor, is indeed to move the needle so that way some of the institutional implicit and explicit biases that exist will be stripped so that that needle can be moved in the right direction. I can give one other example. Another example of moving the data, moving the needle in the right direction is also looking at who is in the department and the degree to which you may or may not have BIPOC voices in your department because they have not been hired. That would also be another way in terms of moving the needle in the right direction when you're looking at who is present, hiring practices, and how do we go about including voices in the department so that you have that representation.
That really helps. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. Jamar, did you want to chime in on that?
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to also really hone in on one thing that Dr. Hall constantly talks about, and also reiterate what Dr. Warner was talking about around place-based research. And so that's also just the operating from the understanding that different places may require and different communities may require different solutions. And so really just challenging the notion of a universal needle moving and being able to just make sure that we're able to operate solutions from within by engaging populations within there. Some of these results may look different, but that's why we're doing this work.
Thanks. Dale, I saw, did you have your hand up?
Well, I wanted to maybe address Amber's question from an administrator's perspective, and I think we're always going to want to measure the outcomes when we do these policy considerations. Dr. Warner talked about hiring, and I think that is the perfect example where we can do a really good job of collecting data on how our recruitments are going. Not only are we hiring, but are we attracting candidates from the BIPOC community and all those things. And then there's the more subjective aspects of it too. As we've woven an equity lens throughout many of our decisions at the city, are we also doing a job in organizational culture of weaving in an equity lens from a racial perspective as well. And I think just building that culture, I think, and those are the types of outcomes that we can actually measure, I think, but on when we are developing, I always use an example because I'm really thrilled with our capital improvement policies now and our equity lens on that. But do we need to, but that's another one. Is it appropriate that there is a racial equity component related to that, that and other city items? So so I think we can do a really good job of having those outcomes and measuring that.
Thanks. I want to try to get.
Just wanted to follow up with what you said, because absolutely, I think part of our process is indeed bringing in an anti-oppressive, anti-discriminatory, anti-racist lens. And part of what we will be doing is helping departments create their own reflexive process. By the way, Jamal, thank you very much for that whole place-based reminder, because I was indeed struggling with that question, like, oh my goodness, how do I respond to this very broad question? So thank you so much for doing that. But it becomes really important to recognize and use the word organizational culture. That absolutely, that will be part of what we will be looking at. But part of what we are hoping for is to help departments engage in and develop this very internal reflexive process of scrutinizing their data and having a very natural feedback loop that exists where they will be questioning about internal practices, internal decision making through an equity and inclusion lens. And that's part of what we are hoping that we will be able to bring into departments as well.
Thanks. Julie.
Thank you. I want to thank the Learn team for taking the time out of your day to be here. We really appreciate this, and I'm excited to see this moving forward. I hope that when we're talking about like hiring practices and departments, that we would also look at all of those volunteer boards and commissions that we have in the city. That's been something that's been on my mind a lot, is that we always seem to have the same types of candidates who apply for that. And it's a difficult, because we're asking people to volunteer their time for those things. So I hope that we dig into that one a little bit. I have a question, and I want to preface this by saying I don't believe what I'm about to ask. I fully support this effort, but it's a criticism that I'm hearing, and I am asking this just so that I have a response when I hear this from folks. And so that is, some critics say that we already know that racism and systemic racism exist in our community, and that we don't need to study it. We should just act. And that they feel like it's a waste of time to do the study. And so I really would appreciate if you guys can give us some feedback on that concept, because I think that this is really important. And I just don't know how to articulate that very well.
It's a wonderful question. Oh, Brad, do you want to go? And then
yeah, I can answer this one. It's also important to note that we make individuals who are your constituents feel that they could be a part of this process. And that's really what we're trying to do, is go beyond anecdotes, go beyond, I guess, the prevailing anger, which we all feel, but to really form a basis for the actions in which they want to accomplish. And that is in data, and that is in the ability to collect these experiences so that we have the saturation of information needed to make real decisions. When you talk about money and the use of city resources, you have to be able to show that this is what the data is telling us. This is where we are being informed in a way that actually is inclusive of those multitude of voices. I will also say that in the step the city is making, it is unprecedented, and it is also ripe to have initial squabblings or opinions about what should and should not be done. But I also would like to say that by supporting this project as the city council and the city leadership, you're investing in understanding in which ways that people have been saying, but the action has to be precipitated by the ability for the city to plan and develop new strategies. And that is where the recommendations of this project come from. And that is what we intend on doing. And so it would be incumbent upon any person that may have concerns or may not feel that this project is worthwhile to have those conversations with us, and that they can be a part of that process. The other thing that we are really not trying to do is develop a false sense of what it is that people in Missoula are really experiencing. We want to have the authenticity of the voices that we are bringing forward to really show. And if we hear from a number of people, that makes the project successful, or we can just hear the same voices over and over and over and over again. The other thing I want to point out is that as we engage with individuals and also focus groups around the collection of these experiences, we are also using a methodology that allows them to also help us to identify other voices in the community that we may not be reaching out to. And then we now have a website which provides tangible information, FAQs, things that are very much what people are asking us every day. And also reaching out from our own personal networks in the city of Missoula to actually start to develop this basis for gathering information from individuals who have experiences in all walks of life. That is really what's going to make this project more rich and less in the sense of an activist lens, but one that's formulated in planning and action based on the recommendations that we're providing.
I also just want to add a couple other points. Thank you, Dr. Hall, that you captured quite a bit of what I would say. The other pieces that I would say when it comes to people being concerned about research, just a couple of things. One, research is a powerful vehicle and mechanism that often were not available to BIPOCs. And so it is really important for us to be able to use research, as Dr. Hall said, to collect and codify experiences and to put those experiences together in a well-designed, equitable, and ethical way that represents the full voice spectrum and the full perspective of BIPOCs across Missoula. And you can only get that rich data through the lens of research. Second, as Erin pointed out so well, one of our goals is to create localized BIPOC generated knowledge. And the reality of the situation, and whenever it comes to equity, whenever it comes to any of these issues, our knowledge base currently is very much centered in the universalizing narrative that's often very Eurocentric about the ways in which things should go about change. And so research becomes powerful in that we get to go out and interact and engage with a diverse group of BIPOC people with a diversity of demographics. And we say to them, hey, what are your concerns? How do you envision? We take that, we codify it, we bring it together. Now we have generated knowledge about the issues and the solutions directly from BIPOC. So I think that's something that you could say that is very important why this is. When people say we already know, my question would be, so if we know, where is this knowledge base codified? Where is it? Where does it exist? Where can we go to reference this information. A very, very important piece. So there's a lot of anecdotal information, but no one has ever taken the time to really sit and codify it in a way that is both ethical and sustainable. So that is a crucial component of having this information. We want the information to be data informed. And as Brad said, we need to be responsible in terms of thinking about what we are doing. Often when we decide to implement strategies or solutions that are not data informed or data driven, we end up having very, it's a gentle way of saying this, solutions that are not the best. That's the best gentleness that I can come up with. And so we really want to change that narrative.
Thank you. Jamar, I saw your hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. And I think one other thing to keep in mind as we're talking about racism, and racism are systems that are infused within many within our culture, and so research is needed in that case, because we just need to understand that if we know everything and understand everything, this is supposing that we know and understand everything there is about racism, then we know exactly what's needed to treat it. We have a solution to it, and we don't have that right now. And so systems of power and privilege continue to grow and amass power and privilege when they go unexamined. And so research, particularly from a critical lens from a racial critical lens, if we're talking about sexism, from that sort of lens, if we're talking about homophobia, it's very important to have these ongoing processes so that we are able to continue to examine and not let these systems of power and privilege go unchecked and unexamined.
Thank you.
Jamar, you saying that just also brought up another point. When you look just across the United States and individuals that are involved in this work, they use data. Michelle Alexander's work is a classic example of her using data to challenge taken for granted issues within our prison system. She came to that information from data. Kimberly Crenshaw, and these are African-American women who deal with issues around inequity and racism. Again, she is out of Columbia. She uses data to inform understanding of what is happening and ultimately what solutions are. And so we are just following in the trend of people that have made an impact, that people that have done some really wonderful work. So we're just following that particular tradition in terms of, again, using data, not for the sake of data, not to prove that racism exists, but really to elevate the viewpoints, elevate the knowledge, and elevate the solutions of BIPOCs that we can then implement in a data-driven way.
Thank you. Julie, thanks for the question. I appreciate you asking it, and thanks very much for the responses, Dr. Warner, Dr. Hall, and Jamar. Mirta.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to thank All Nations Health Center for being a fiscal sponsor to this very important project. And to the Learn team, thank you so much. I think I speak for many on this council when I say that when we embarked on addressing this very important and challenging issue, we didn't know what it was going to look like. And I have read the proposal, and you certainly live up to what Learn stands for. I think that you have developed this with an incredible amount of attention to detail, sensitivity, sensibility. I thank you for that. I have explored your website, and it's very comprehensive and informative. So thank you for doing that. I guess I see the work that will be accomplished through all this research as you creating and providing a lens that we can use to make meaningful and sustainable change in Missoula. So for that, I thank you. It's an important component of improving the lives of our BIPOC community. And finally, I just want to say that the seed money that we embedded in our budget, I'm happy to see it put to work. So I look forward to continuing to work with you and learning what you learn. And I'd be happy to make the motion.
Thanks, Marita. Yeah, I appreciate you making the motion. The motion's in order. And I want to thank Jordan. Jordan's given me some extra time from his committee. Heidi?
So I want to say thank you as well, and I'm really excited to see this move forward. I do have some questions related to the overall budget, I guess. And I think, I'm fully in support of the city supporting this, obviously. But I was wondering, I think it's also important that there's a degree of impartial, maybe independence and objectivity. And I think part of that is, having additional funding sources that are independent and not from the city. And I was just curious where this additional funding is coming from, and then I guess how that will be communicated to the public as a whole. Like, I think it's important, that this is viewed as bigger than just a city administration or city council. Like, it's a community-wide investment, I guess.
I'm not sure who best to take that. Aaron, Dr. Warner, Dr. Hall.
Yeah, I think we are in the process of soliciting and looking for financial options. That is something that as a team we are working on, and indeed we do see this as involving a scope much bigger than the city, and we are going to be approaching different organizations to ask for additional funding. That is in the works. We do not have right now a list that we could offer at this point, but it is definitely something that we have been working on, planning, just thinking through.
Dexter, Dexter, sorry, saw your hand there, go ahead.
I'll just quickly add that, yes, as far as funding, we will be reaching out to other corporations, other nonprofit organizations, as well as grants. We're going to be retrieving and applying for lots of grants, because this is a project that's definitely require funding, additional funding, and it's a project that is so worthwhile for the city and county of Missoula. So we do have an approach that will be taken to ensure we receive funding.
Thanks. Sandra, I think you're the last hand I have up, and then I'm going to move to any public comment and a vote.
Thank you. I appreciate Julie bringing up the pushback that we received from a lot of the community members back in June. I, however, am going to still side with those community members who brought up those concerns and very respectfully declined to support this motion.
Okay. Jamara, I saw your hand up.
Oops. Yes, sorry. I also wanted to add on the thank you to All Nations Hilton, who is our fiscal sponsor. And, we also have a donation process that donations can be made on behalf of the project to All Nations for folks.
Thanks. I'll just use this opportunity. I realize we're over time. Again, I want to thank all the members of the team for the work on this. Thank you, Aaron and Dale, for your work within the administration. Appreciate the support from most of my colleagues on this. This has my absolute support, and I am happy to be engaged in any way that the team might find helpful if it would be helpful to help with additional support for the project. I've mentioned that in some conversations in the past and want to reiterate that here. So thank you very much. I will go to public comment. We have one attendee. If there is any public comment, just raise your hand and we can take that. And I'm not seeing any. So we have a motion on the floor and I'll call for a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
No.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
No.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Okay, that is 9 yeses, 2 nos, 1 absent. Anybody want to change their vote? Thank you.
No. Jordan, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks. This is a great project. I'm looking forward to it. I wanted to make an announcement about the LUP committee as well. I'll plan to start that at 1:40.
Okay, thanks, Jordan, and thanks again for the time. Sorry about that. Sandra and John, would you prefer this goes on committee reports or under consent agenda?
I don't mind if it goes on consent agenda if John doesn't. Oh, you're muted, John.
That's fine. Yes.
Ms. Merritt?
Mr. Chair, I would prefer this be on a committee report. I think it's important enough to, was that what Julie you were about to say?
Yes.
Okay. That's that's your prerogative. It'll go under.
I don't mind that either.
It'll go under committee reports. Thank you, everyone, and thanks everyone for attending. We much appreciate it. Committee of the whole will be adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.